behind closed doors. South Africa's harsh economic realities are driving more young women into relationships with much older men. What many call blesser, blessee relationships. But behind the gifts, the trips, and the designer bags lies a dangerous and powerful imbalance with long-term psychological consequences. Today we unpack the tough truths behind this disturbing new trend with Sindisiwe Msimango, representative for the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. Sindisiwe, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about the findings that stood out for you, and perhaps those who are new to the concept of blesser-blessee relationships. Let's unpack what that actually means and what that actually looks like.
So blesser-blessee relationships or intergenerational relationships refer to sexual or romantic transactional relationships between individuals who belong to significantly different age groups, often a substantial age gap. So these relationships often involve a partner who is considerably older than the other. That is why they are commonly known as blesser-blessee relationships. And with these relationships, they often arise from a mix of structural disadvantage or gendered power imbalances and emotional or material needs. Yeah.
And Sindisiwe, what is driving this?
You would find that what's driving these intergenerational relationships is the socio-economic imbalance, your poverty, your social, cultural standards. You find that young women are not empowered financially or economically, and then they tend to gravitate towards men who are there to provide for them, who are offering like economical or financial freedom.
It is 19 minutes after 1 p.m. Central African time. We are in conversation with Sindisiwe Msimango, representative for the National Shelter Movement in South Africa. A statistic recently has revealed that 82.8% of young women in impoverished areas in South Africa are engaging in sexual relations with men much older than them. And we'll continue the conversation right after this. It is now 20 minutes after 1 p.m. Central African time. If you'd like to share your sentiments regarding these shocking statistics that we have just revealed, you're more than welcome to share them on our WhatsApp line, +2763 406 9126.
June is Youth Month in South Africa. Celebrate Africa's young voices with us. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. We take no sides, none whatsoever. We are the Upside.
Well, let's continue our conversation about intergenerational relationships on the rise in South Africa at the moment. And we're currently in conversation with Sindisiwe Msimango, representative for the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. Sindisiwe, you mentioned earlier, we described what a blesser-blessee relationship is, what it looks like. And then we also spoke about the causes, what could potentially be fueling and driving that, unemployment, poverty. But then when we go a bit deeper on this psychologically, what does one's childhood experience, what role does that then play, especially for the women, in them finding themselves in these relationships when they're older?
You'll find that most women, as you know, they grow up in these child-headed households where there's no parent present. They have to fend for themselves. And that leads them to gravitating towards being in relationships with elder men will be there to provide for them. Young women get into these relationships, and for this economical freedom, there's no empowerment, there's no I might say there's no support within the household to support them. So they get into these relationships to get money, to get clothes. There's also this peer pressure from friends where they see this nice lifestyle and they want to do that. Some of these women, they get into these relationships because the parents, they were victims of gender-based violence.
Yeah.
And now the mother now is like there's no money to fend for the children. So you'll find these young girls will now go out of the house to go and get money to bring into the household so that there's food for the night. So it's all these things that contribute to these relationships.
Some may say, being in a relationship with someone who's older than you, it sounds normal. At what age range do we then say this is now a cause for concern? Because when you look at men dating women, oftentimes they're dating someone who's younger than them, 3-5 years age gap. At what age range do we then say, no, that's a cause for concern, and we need to look out when we are seeing our daughters dating someone within this particular range, because there might be an imbalance there that we need to look out for?
When it comes to young people, we have the Children's Act, which stipulates that children under the age of 18, you cannot date them because that would be statutory.
Yeah.
So even you'd find women who are 25 and they're dating a 50-year-old. So we can't say, which is the appropriate age where we must be concerned. Because this is happening in all the age gaps. A woman can be 40, dating a 70-year-old who's a millionaire. A child can be 12, dating a 30-year-old who's providing for them financially. So it's a concern for all young women and girls. It's not that there's no age bracket, if I may put it like that.
All right.
Because it's happening across all ages.
Yeah. Psychologically, long term, what effects do these relationships then have on the girls, the young ladies, and also perhaps even we're talking about women right now, but I know that there are some men who are also in relationships with older women. Let's talk about the psychological effects that these intergenerational relationships may have on them.
Okay. The psychological effects in terms of intergenerational relationships, people often experience a wide range of negative psychological effects, particularly when the relationship is of an exploitative nature and is rooted in socio-economic vulnerability. Many are affected by anxiety. You have depression, they have suicidal thoughts, and in severe cases, there's psychosis that's linked to substance abuse. They often feel degraded and powerless in these relationships, and they cannot leave due to the lack of resources that they are gaining from these relationships. So they are really psychologically impacted. And as you said, even men who also enter into these relationships, they are not far from this. They are also impacted by such intergenerational relationships.
And are there any forms of emotional and perhaps even gender-based violence that emerge from such relationships because of those power dynamics?
Most definitely, because now if you have a person who's more subordinate, a person who has the money, that person is in control. You are basically giving your whole self to them just so that you get something. So the elements of gender-based violence is always there. You will find that it's not only gender-based violence, but also emotional and psychological abuse also occurs in these types of relationships, because the person who has the most power is the one with the money, and that's often the blesser. And you find that they would degrade you, they call you names, and there's nothing you can do about it because you are dependent on them. And there's the gender-based violence, and you mention it, and you don't leave because you are expecting something in return.
Prevention will always be the focus and the way that we need to focus on going forward. What preventative measures do we need to put in place in our societies, in our homesteads, as parents, as communities, as friends, as government? What do we need to do to ensure that this does not continue to rise?
Yeah, in the research that the clinical psychologist Bongile Sibanyoni had conducted, she came up with a few recommendations, such as psychoeducation in schools, which involves early intervention programs to educate young girls and boys about their mental conditions, available treatments and resources, coping strategies, and resilience that can assist them in terms of interacting or just getting to know what is out there in the world. Also having brief psychotherapy for those showing early signs of distress, and intensive psychotherapy for young women and young girls who are severely impacted by gender-based violence in terms of the intergenerational relationships. In her research, she also stressed that the government needs to play a more proactive role, NGOs and businesses also, to support these initiatives, because this cannot be dealt only with by family members alone or the community. Like, everybody has to have a collaborative approach in order to tackle this issue.
Say now I know someone who is in a relationship, an intergenerational relationship, and I feel just through observation, because they are a friend of mine, a close confidant, and I'm realizing that it's a rather unhealthy relationship that they find themselves in. Where do I go? Are there support structures in place? Or even if I am in that situation myself and I'm realizing that it's a rather unhealthy relationship, where can I go to find support?
We have shelters within South Africa. As you know, I'm from the National Shelter Movement of South Africa. We also have a gender-based hotline that people can call, 0800 001 005. You can also send an SMS or WhatsApp, or please call me to 082 057 8600. Or you can send an email to info@nationalsm.org.za. As I said, there are also shelters all around the country which deal with gender-based violence. There are social workers who are very equipped and very knowledgeable on such issues, who can take you through the steps on what to do should you need assistance.
Sindisiwe, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for shining a light on this very important conversation. And we certainly hope that those listening in on this conversation, those who have been affected, will now know where to go and also look out for the signs around them amongst the youth in their communities or within their own families. But thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Sindisiwe Msimango, representative